So today has been pretty spectacular. I rewatched Top Gun Maverick for like the 50th time and then finished Cobra Kai Season 5. Nostalgia in full force. What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. I was able to see Season 5 of Cobra Kai a little bit early thanks to Netflix, but we are not going to spoil anything in this video, so do not worry. We're just going to run over plot points we already know from the trailers, and I'm going to try my best to give you guys my full thoughts on this season. We'll have a spoiler video later this week, but let's get right into Season 5. Following the shocking results of the All Valley tournament, Season 5 finds Terry Silver expanding the Cobra Kai empire and trying to make his no-mercy style of karate the only game in town. With Kreese behind bars and Johnny Lawrence setting karate aside to focus on repairing the damage he's caused, Daniel LaRusso must call on an old friend for help. As always, we start with the rating, very family-friendly show. Of course, there's going to be violence, gore, profanity, everything you expect in a Cobra Kai movie or show, but even with those things, this is one you want to watch with everybody, the entire family. Everyone in my family is caught up on this show, and they're very excited for this new season. And I want to start with the opposing force here, and not John Kreese. We're talking Terry Silver, who has kind of grown into that role. We saw the end of Season 4, kind of where we left off with Cobra Kai now, the big dog in town. Eagle Fang and Miyagi-Do, they've had to shut their doors after the All Valley tournament, and Terry Silver being the opposition this time around, I think adds an entirely new dynamic to the show. And while I love Kreese as a villainous presence, I believe Silver may be even more of a villainous presence. Not that he's a better character, because they're very different in the way that they operate. Terry Silver is more sly. He's going to make people feel like he's doing the right thing, whereas Kreese, he's just a guy who's going to come out and say, yeah, I'm the bad guy. I accept and embrace that. I have my purpose for doing things. And Silver has his purposes, but he's also putting up a front for people, making them believe he's doing it for the right reasons. And he truly believes that, but is he actually doing all of this to help advance the kids in their skill sets and just allow them to grow as good individuals instead of learning what Terry Silver has to teach in this season? And that, for me, makes for a great villain. So he was absolutely one of my favorite characters in this season. Every time he's on screen, I'm locked in. Doesn't matter who is there with him. So Terry Silver, a big check mark next to his name. Fantastic. Then we get into Daniel and Johnny. Their relationship has grown a lot up until Season 5, but I really like the dynamic this time around. And not that things were getting stale in Season 4, but it's kind of that same rinse and repeat formula that we continue to see. And while I like that, it's nice to take that in a slightly different direction and allow them to grow. Daniel is growing for very specific reasons that I can't quite get into just yet, but he learns a few lessons this season. But Johnny is getting hit with different life lessons left and right, as always, but this season, it seems, even the first 3 to 4 episodes, way more prominent than it has been before. And Johnny having to deal with that, not only learn how things operate in the present, which is still an ongoing joke that I absolutely love, but working on that relationship between he and Carmen, Robbie and Miguel. And Johnny doesn't seem like the kind of guy that has to keep up with all of this and be the one to give advice when he needs to, but he has to step into that role this season. And I love seeing that. And as always, when it's he and Daniel on screen, I think maybe even more so this season than last season, it's really good. Speaking of Robbie and Miguel, we know where Miguel went last season and kind of where we start out in Season 5 and how that journey is going to affect his character in the long run. I found that story to be really fascinating, although it does take up a huge chunk of the first few episodes, and they are away from home. They're away from the dojo, so you get a lot of things happening somewhere else. And that, for me, maybe didn't feel as much like Cobra Kai, and that's probably going to be a good thing for a lot of people, giving it a different feel, which is nice, but that also caused some of our characters to get really shortchanged in the first few episodes, and in turn, all throughout the season. Someone like an Eli who had an amazing story arc at the end of last season, but he doesn't really come to prominence until a bit later on in Season 5, but even then, wasn't a prominent character. And there are more than a few supporting characters in here, like a Dimitri, that you're just like, I want to see more of them. I understand you can't do maybe as much as you want to do with all of the storylines going on, but those arcs kind of die down in Season 5, so that was a little disappointing. But by doing that, you're allowing some of these new characters to step into those roles, like a Devin, like a Kenny, who was introduced in Season 4, and I was questioning his character at first. I'm like, okay, what's the role going to be? But I think there's a lot of growth this season, whether that be in a good direction or not. And there's something about his imposing screen presence. He's such, he's smaller. It doesn't feel like he could be someone to take down the entire team, but man, oh man, is he not a force of nature in this season. So that was super cool to see. And then other characters who the spotlight is put on them in the best way possible. Tori is someone who is having to cope with what happened at the end of Season 4. That is locked in her brain. How is she going to handle that? And Samantha, I don't really want to mention her storyline in detail in this review. We'll talk about it later. But I really love what happened with Samantha this season. At first, I was questioning it. I'm like, okay, what are we doing? The more conversation we get with her, the better it felt. And then you have your new characters. And I don't want to talk about all of them, but the one I do want to mention is someone who was teased in Season 4. That is Chozen, a way more prominent role than I ever imagined. And the part that he plays in not only bringing dojos together, man, I loved Chozen and just the interactions between he and Daniel, man. Their camaraderie, that rivalry still intact. I just thought it was great. I can't wait to talk more about that story because there's a lot of juicy details in Season 5. And then finally, Kreese. You saw in the trailer, he is in prison. What's going to happen with this story? Well, I don't want to talk about it, but Kreese is going to play a role. I will not say anymore. But man, Kreese, I love him. I love him. My final criticisms, of course, you're going to have that melodrama in there. The scenes where they're fighting over territory. There's one scene where they're at a pool, and they're like, oh, you stay on your side of the pool, and we'll stay on our side of the pool. And me, as a man who is of adult age but doesn't act like an adult, is sitting back saying, it's a pool. Just play in the pool, kids. Just play. Who cares? But they lean into the cheese, right? They lean into even the melodramatic scenes that are ridiculously over the top. I love the fact that the show plays on that. It understands the type of show that it is at this point in Season 5. So didn't bother me too much. It's just some of those lines, they'll say something. It's trying to be super epic, and it's so cheesy. I'm like, kids, just play in the pool, okay? You also have the fight scenes, man, and, some incredible action scenes between the kids, some meaningful, I think more meaningful action this time around, while the choreography may not be as special because, we're not doing that big All-Valley tournament again. There are some meaningful fights that pack a punch emotionally, and that, for me, is just as cool. You also get the big set piece towards the end. I don't even want to say the context of that, but that was great. They always deliver on those final fights, which was really nice to see. My bigger critique, I felt it maybe a bit more this season, is when the adults are fighting. I mean, a lot of adults fighting this time around. You can tell the action slowed down, and then in post, they're speeding it up. And that, to me, is an obvious editing decision. They don't have much of a choice at that point because the actors are doing their own stunts. But hey, the actors are doing their own stunts. So I appreciate that. Even though it doesn't look 100% realistic at all times, that's something as a film fan, as someone who respects a show like this, to get the actors to do that for the most part is really cool. And it doesn't become a bigger issue at the end of the day because they're choosing to do that. So before I give you my score, what is your favorite season of Cobra Kai thus far? I'm going to be ranking the seasons later this week, and if you want a spoiler review, be sure to drop a like down below. It helps the channel. It tells me you want more Cobra Kai, and come back for more reviews. Season 5 has the difficult task of delivering on numerous meaningful storylines and balancing integral characters. While every character may not get their due, the subplots presented are properly executed. The tone is perfect, and Terry Silver is a force of nature, and our heroes have a tough hill to climb. I thoroughly enjoyed this season. Once again, broken record, but I'm going an 88% with my score. I loved Season 5, and just the way it was executed. I still need more time to sit on it and put all of the storylines together, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, yeah, this show, man, it's staying on the right track, and that's all that matters. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you soon.